We go.
All right. So good morning, everybody. I'm Amy Snyder from the Connect and Communicate Series Planning Committee. Thank you for joining us for this presentation, Money Smart Week in Financial Literacy Programming. This discussion will be recorded and will be made available to Pennsylvania Library Association College and Research Division members through the PALA website. For this discussion, you will only need a headset or speakers. We encourage you to ask questions in the chat box at the bottom right throughout the discussion, and we'll attempt to include your questions as appropriate during the discussion or at the end. And we'll also do our best to assist participants with technical issues. So if you're having technical issues, please post those in the chat box and we'll try to assist you. Money Smart Week in Financial Literacy Programming is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Library Association's College and Research Division's Connect and Communicate series. And I'd like to thank the CRD board for supporting the Connect and Communicate initiative and the other Connect and Communicate Planning Committee members, which includes Sarah Pike, Jill Howemiller, Aaron Burns, Amanda Avery, Ryan Settler, and Rana Lee Fiocco. And I'd like to acknowledge PLA for allowing us to bring this discussion to you through Zoom. And thank you to Amanda for doing our closed captioning for today's session. If you just joined us, we are keeping track of attendance today, so if there's more than one of you in the room, please type the number of attendees in your location, at your location in the chat box. That way we can see how many people are attended. And finally, I'd like to thank and introduce our panelists for today's event. Emily Mross is the business librarian at Penn State Harrisburg Library. Her duties also include outreach coordination to the campus and community. Emily holds an MLIS from the University of Pittsburgh and an MED in Instructional Technology from East Stroudsburg University, and a BA in English and Journalism from Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Her research focuses on innovative library outreach. Olivia Sullivan is a personal banker at First National Bank. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our presenters.
Hi, everyone. This is Emily. I'm going to be doing the front end of the discussion, and then Olivia will be joining us at the end to talk to us about kind of the services that a financial institution can provide to your organization, your library, in terms of financial literacy programming. First National Bank is a partner organization with PA Forward, which is an initiative of the Pennsylvania Library Association to promote the 5 key literacies in Pennsylvania. Financial literacy is one of those key literacies. So we're going to talk about that as we go through. I'm first going to discuss Money Smart Week Financial Literacy Month and how PA Forward kind of fits into that type of programming. Then I'm going to talk about some resources that are available for libraries to conduct their own financial literacy programming. And then I'm going to talk to you about some programming that we have done here at Penn State Harrisburg and how that's been received. And then Olivia will talk about the kind of services that a partner organization can provide. So as they mentioned, I am the business librarian at Penn State Harrisburg. I've been here this is my second year now, just wrapping up, and I've been trying to incorporate financial literacy programming more into our outreach over the past 2 years. So this will be our second year doing financial literacy programming, and it's been going really well. So you might realize, maybe you do or do not, that April is Financial Literacy Month, and Money Smart Week takes place during Financial Literacy Month. Tax Day also happens in April, so there's a lot of money and finance programming that might be going on in your library or in your community during this month. Maybe you're seeing different things on the news. Maybe your public library is offering the Vista volunteers for the tax preparation. There's a lot of things going on with money in April. But Money Smart Week, which is this week, we're reaching the end of it, that originally started in 2002 in Chicago. The Fed in Chicago and other community organizations wanted to increase the financial literacy of the citizens of Chicago. People who are more financially literate tend to be more successful kind of in their overall lives, and they're able to contribute to the community. So this is now a nationwide initiative with ALA, the Federal Reserve Bank, and other community partners, including libraries and nonprofit organizations. If you go to moneysmartweek.org, you can find a lot more information about the different types of programming that's offered, it seems like in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh is the only city that has taken on a large Money Smart Week initiative. In Pennsylvania in general, we have our PA Forward initiatives, and financial literacy is one of those key literacies that we promote. So there's a lot of opportunities there if you wanted to get something started at your library or in your community. Popular programming topics for the Money Smart Week program in this past year, I think for 2016, were retirement planning, money management, identity theft, banking services, and estate planning. And so a lot of those speak to, the full financial life that we go through as we go through our journeys in life. We covered a few of those topics with our students at Penn State Harrisburg, and Olivia will talk to you about the type of programming that she can provide in those different areas. But it's really about knowing your audience and what type of money issues they're most commonly having in their life right now, or is most frequently on their mind, to kind of determine what type of programming you'd want to provide that would be of interest. So this past, for 2017, last year, there were over 3,800 events across the US for Money Smart Week, working with almost 2,500 partners, and more than 100,000 people attended programming for Money Smart Week. And the sessions that they attended were really well received. So if you'd like to check out some more resources for Money Smart Week, moneysmartweek.org is their website. So personally, I think that every week should be Money Smart Week. A couple years ago at the Pennsylvania Library Association annual conference, we had a really great program from Dodd Risk. She's out of Penn State, and she does a lot of research on financial literacy. And she has worked with Lauren Ryder, who is another PA Forward Financial Literacy Committee member, to provide financial literacy services at the University Park campus to students. We don't only think about money in April when the taxes come due, though that does, weigh heavily on our minds at this time, but every day, every week, we make a lot of decisions that affect our financial lives. And so we don't need to only relegate financial literacy programming to the month of April. You can do this throughout the year. I have seen, I live in Hershey, and our public libraries here have been doing different types of financial literacy programming, Adulting 101, if you've heard of programs like that, that focus on finances for younger people throughout the year. And so don't think that you only have to do these things during April. They can definitely be spread throughout the year. And there is demand for them, as I found in the programming that I offered at my campus. And the reason that I think every week should be Financial Literacy Month and Money Smart Week, this is from some data from the George Washington University Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center. So they survey people, they quiz people about their finances and how they conduct their financial lives. And here are some eye-opening statistics from their report from 2015. Less than half of Americans have a rainy day fund that would cover their expenses for 3 months. And that's kind of the bare minimum that financial experts think that you should have set aside, is about 3 months. If you're really trying to be an overachiever, you want to try to have 6 to a year of expenses set aside if you had some type of emergency. And most people are not even at the 3-month mark. Student loans are a really big topic and right now, and more than half of the people that they spoke to have concern about their ability to pay off their loans. And if they had had better education about the loans, the repayment and interest when they had taken those loans out, maybe they would have made a different decision. Also, we are always wondering about, will Social Security be there? How are my retirement funds doing? But only 39% of Americans have tried at some point to figure out how much they need to save for retirement. So we all hopefully want to retire someday, and we just think that it's off in the future and it'll happen and we'll get there. But very few of us are actually planning those things out. So as I mentioned, in Pennsylvania, we have PA Forward through the Pennsylvania Library Association to focus on the key literacies that are vital to our society, our economy. Financial literacy is one of those literacies, and we do have a team to help provide resources and programming for libraries in Pennsylvania to cover financial literacy. If you hope to become a star library at some point, and academic libraries can become star libraries, you will need to provide some type of programming on financial literacy. So from the PA Forward website, here is some information about what financial literacy as a key literacy means. We want Pennsylvania citizens to become informed consumers, have our individuals, businesses, and organizations contribute to our economy through innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic development. And some more stats about how we view our financial lives here in the US. 41% of us would give ourselves a C, D, or an F on our knowledge of personal finance. I think I'd give myself maybe a B minus. 1 in 4 adults does not pay bills on time. 1 in 3 has no savings and does not have any portion of their household income saved for retirement. And every year, the Attorney General's office receives tons of complaints about fraudulent credit card charges, finance scams, and misleading solicitations. So financial literacy could potentially help prevent some of those issues if we read things more finely, we look at the fine print, try to avoid identity theft and things like that, that you can teach your consumers and your constituents through financial literacy programming. So at the PA Forward Financial Literacy team, where I am the vice chair and Lauren Ryder, who I mentioned previously, is the chair, we help to coordinate financial literacy resources at the state level, and that is for public, school, and academic libraries. We can provide programming for you and come to your meeting, your location, your workshop, and do that programming. We can also provide different electronic resources. We provide press releases around relevant events and celebrations that everyone who is a member of Pennsylvania Library Association is free to use. We also work with partner organizations. So as I mentioned, First National Bank is one of our partner organizations to kind of create that programming and make links between our libraries and the other organizations in their community who can help them with programming or other initiatives that would work for their constituents and their patrons. So now, as I mentioned, the Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center, they do a lot of quizzing and surveying of the American public to check their financial literacy, check their financial standing in their lives. They have 3 questions that they use to measure overall financial literacy. So we're going to go through these 3 questions, write down your answers. We will go over those answers. And I've also asked my students these questions, and we'll see how your answers stack up against them. So here's the first question. If you had $100 in a savings account and the interest rate was $2% per year, if you left that money alone for 5 years, how much money would you have? Would you have more than $102, exactly $102, less than $102, or I don't know? So $100, 2% interest rate, you leave it alone for 5 years, how much money is there? Okay, I'm going to move on to the second question in the interest of time. Okay, so another interest question, and inflation as well. Imagine that the interest rate on your savings account was 1% per year and inflation is 2% per year. So you leave that money alone. After 1 year, with the money in your account, would you be able to buy more than today, exactly the same as today, less than today, or I don't know? So you put your money in the account, you leave it there, get 1% interest rate, and inflation is 2%. How much can you buy in a year? And again, moving on to the last question, this will be true or false. Do you think the following statement is true or false? Buying a single company stock usually provides a safer return than a stock mutual fund. Okay, so here are our answers. For the first question, you would have more than $102. So answer A is correct. For inflation, you would be able to buy less than today in 1 year if your interest rate was 1% and inflation was 2%. And for our investment question, the question was false. You would want to a safer choice is to invest in a mutual fund rather than a single company stock. So over here on the side of the screen, we see the age breakdown of who answered the question correctly. So ages 18 to 24, so my college students, are least likely to answer all three of those questions correctly. The 25 to 29 range, just getting out on the job market, a little bit better, and 30 to 34, a little bit better, but still, that's less than a quarter of that population that could answer those questions correctly. And I did find with my students, the first two questions, actually, the first question was pretty easy for them to figure out. Most of them could figure out the simple math on the interest, but the inflation question threw them for a loop. They did not answer that question well. Now I just want to talk about some other resources that you can take a look at for help with financial literacy programming. The first thing that I want to kind of plug is the RUSA Financial Literacy Education in Libraries Guidelines and Best Practices for Service booklet. This is available for free from the American Library Association. I don't believe that you even need to be a member of ALA to be able to access this book. This was put together in conjunction with a lot of members of RUSA from the, which is the Reference and User Services section of ALA, sorry if you don't want to use too many acronyms, along with members of BRASS, which is the Business Reference and Services section of RUSA of ALA, our partners at the Fed, and some other, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau as well, worked to put together a really comprehensive guide. It has 6 broad themes for financial literacy programming. They give you topics for workshops, along with outcomes and ways to assess those programs. There's a long list of potential organizations that you could partner with in your community at the national level and kind of looking for a similar organization at the local or regional level, and resource lists for free resources that you can use to conduct programming at your library. So I have found this book this pamphlet really to be extremely helpful in thinking about financial literacy for my students and thinking about how to kind of set up the objectives for these workshops and what type of assessment we can do. As part of RUSA, if you are a member of ALA or RUSA in general, we also have a financial literacy interest group that you can join, and we have monthly discussion on financial literacy topics, but this publication is free to anyone. Here are some additional resources that you may want to check out. I have consulted all of these things in looking for programming ideas and resources, and I will be able to make these slides available to everyone. So if you don't have time to write them all down, don't worry. But there are some really great resources here. There's a LibGuide available through ALA with how to think about your collection at your library and doing some collection development in relation to financial literacy resources. We also have an ALA Money Smart Week that is free for everyone to use. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has a lot of publications that libraries can request for free, bookmarks and things like that. The Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center that I've mentioned a few times has a really great website with other reports and statistics that you can check out. The Federal Reserve has its own educational website that has a lot of resources for various kind of age levels, grade levels. And there are 2 things from public media that I'd like to point out. Your Money and Your Life at NPR, that was a series that they were doing over the last few years, talking to real people about money in their lives and kind of connecting them with experts to explain why we do things we do and how we could do them better. And PBS did one, Your Life, Your Money, on similar themes. That's a little bit older. But we found, and kind of research has found, that personal stories work really well in connecting people over money. You don't want to kind of just give them a lot of jargon and very clinical explanations of things. Talk about real life stories, and if you're not comfortable talking about your own real life stories, you can find some from these resources where people are talking about what's happened to them and what kind of changes they made in their lives to be more financially literate. I also want to plug your local financial institutions as a great resource for financial literacy programming and other information. So I work at Penn State Harrisburg. We've put on 3 financial literacy programs now in the last 2 years, and we have some more planned for next year. We are a suburban Harrisburg campus, so we're actually in Middletown, Pennsylvania, which is near the Harrisburg airport. We're not in downtown Harrisburg, but we have more than 5,000 students, and they are from all over the place, all over the United States, all over Pennsylvania, and honestly all over the world. So we have 700 international students and growing, and everybody has their own financial literacy concerns. So we started doing this program last spring. in 2017. And initially, we did target that international student population. We had some survey data provided to us from our International Student Support Services office that said that one of the top concerns for our international students was their finances. So I saw that as a really good opportunity to kind of break in for some library programming and get those students some help. And after that, we decided to expand it to the general student population. So the first program that I did last year was at a workshop that's held each week called Fun English Conversation. So this is an opportunity, it's not only for international students, but it gives an opportunity for international students to have a conversation with native English speakers about various different topics, make some friends, and work on conversational English skills. So you might be familiar with the sitcom Friends. There's a little picture over there on the side. In the very first episode, Rachel financially and all of their types of emancipation emancipates herself from her parents, and her friends convince her to cut up her credit cards that her dad pays for. So to kind of break the ice, I decided to use clips from Friends and other sitcoms that dealt with a financial literacy topic to kind of use those personal stories. So it's a bunch of strangers in a room. You probably don't necessarily feel very comfortable talking about all of your intimate financial life with someone that you just met, especially if there's a language barrier. So using these clips allowed the students to kind of, if they weren't comfortable talking about their own situation, talk about what happened in the clip and then say, this is what I would have done if I were in that situation, or here's what I think the character should have done that would have been a better idea. So that was a really good icebreaker. We had really great conversation. We had 18 students that joined us total, and we started off with a financial literacy quiz similar to the one that I gave you at the beginning. We talked about budgeting, we talked about ways to save money as a student on campus, and then we went into our discussion. So we didn't do any formal assessment at that program, but we did do some with Financial Literacy 101 and 201, which I'll talk about now. These were programs that I put together this year with our partner, Olivia Sullivan from First National Bank. We offered these during April as part of Financial Literacy Month. So I know I said that April doesn't have to be the only month where you do financial literacy programming, but it does help to fit on the theme. So these programs, they didn't really take a lot of financial investment at all. For the Fun English Conversation, since I kind of inserted the library into an already existing program, I didn't even have to bring the food because that office already paid for the food for the program. For Financial Literacy 101, I did partner with our first year seminar office, and so we have a large number of freshmen on our campus. They are required to go to so many first year seminar events and receive credit for them. So by getting this program on that agenda, I kind of was able to build in some more RSVPs than maybe I would have gotten otherwise. So over on the side of the slide, you're seeing my advertisement there. We kind of built Financial Literacy 101 and 201 as workshops that would build off of each other. So Financial Literacy 101 was our basic session where we covered general budgeting, how to build credit, understand what your credit score is, how do you check your credit score. We talked about responsible borrowing, and we talked about identity theft as well. And we just provided cookies, and I provided some library swag, and Olivia provided some First National Bank swag. We had 13 participants. Of those, actually, we originally had 9 people saying that they were coming from the first year seminar, but only 1 person from that list showed up. And we had 1 additional walk-in who was hoping to get that that first year seminar credit. So I was really surprised that there were so many people on campus who were just interested in the topic, and they saw my email. I do thankfully have access to our student email list. And was able to send this out to them directly. And there were just a lot of people that were very interested on their own to come in. So of the 13 people that came, 7 of them completed my financial literacy question. So I asked them the interest question, I asked them the inflation question. 5 of the 7 students were able to answer that interest question correctly, but only 1 of our 7 students was able to answer that inflation question correctly. I also did a brief survey at the end. I asked them how comfortable they were with the session, how comfortable they were with financial literacy prior to the session, and how comfortable they were after, and then also how helpful they found it. So we had a whole range of discomfort levels prior to the session, but afterwards, the people that did respond all indicated that they were now moderately comfortable with financial literacy, personal finance issues, and everyone ranked the session to be some level of helpful. So I think this went really well. And, you know, they didn't even really eat all the cookies. So I just did a program on Monday where I think a lot of people came because I had pizza. In this particular program, people were there. They were really enthusiastic. They had good questions for Olivia, and they didn't really even seem to want the food. So that was interesting to me. The FYS credit didn't even seem to bring that many people in. It was just people broadly that were interested in participating. And I actually even got a phone call from a student after this session who was really upset that he wasn't able to attend. And I was able to put him in contact with some of the resources that we talked about so that he could do some self-paced financial literacy education. And I do plan to offer these in a future semester at different times so we can accommodate more students. Financial Literacy 201 was offered the following week, and we targeted this at people who were about to graduate and head out onto the job market. So we knew that there might be some overlap between students that went to 201 or 101, or maybe they were only attending one or the other. So we did cover budgeting again, because that is a really important skill, but we went a little bit more in depth in that. We also talked about student loan repayment options, the general retirement options, so a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA, healthcare savings that your employer may offer you, so a health savings account and a flexible spending account, how to save for a car and a home, what are responsible borrowing practices for those two types of purchases. We had lots of time for questions, and you know, our students that are graduating, you get your first job and they throw a ton of paperwork at you, and it really just helps to have someone talk to you in a general sense to make sense of what all those acronyms mean. So we had 8 participants. This time, I think I had 4 FYS people signed up ahead of time, and only one of them came. So 7 people that saw my email and were interested in the topic enough to take an hour out of their day and come join us. And again, didn't even go crazy for the food or the swag. They were really just there, very interested in the information. For this session, I asked them, and this was something that Olivia covered in the presentation, if you have a 15-year mortgage versus a 30-year mortgage, it was a true or false, you'll make a higher payment monthly, but you'll pay less interest over time. So true or false, if you get a 15-year mortgage instead of a 30-year mortgage, you'll make a higher monthly payment, but you'll pay less interest over time. Before the session, 4 of 5 students could answer that question correctly, and after the session, all of them could answer that correctly. And we, again, had 3 people complete the survey, a similar range of discomfort levels, both before but then also after the session. I think they all did progress. So even if they were still uncomfortable, they were less uncomfortable than they were before we started. And 2 people found the session to be helpful. 1 person said that it was neither helpful nor unhelpful. That person also seemed to indicate that they thought they were going to get a personal consultation with Olivia at this session, which is not what it was advertised as. So who knows? Our users always have different feelings about how things should be. But overall, I think this was really well received. Students, again, had really great questions to ask Olivia, and it went over really well. And it's something that I definitely want to do again in the future. So a few things that I kept in mind when I was building these different programs. Think about your campus and what offices might deal with your students and your finances. So obviously you might think of financial aid or your bursar's office where people are specifically dealing with money. But what about your international student office? What about student counseling? Maybe students are, having issues with money that is bleeding over into other areas of their lives. Perhaps you have a food pantry on campus or something like that. Try to kind of feel out which offices might be dealing with these topics or know that they have students that are concerned about these particular issues. If they have any survey data or any types of reports that they release to the campus, check those things out and find out what you can about the students that they work with. Also, maybe you have an accounting club or some other type of club on your campus who might deal with financial literacy as part of their programming. or part of their mission. You can check their social media, see if they have posted anything like that. I've found from our social media accounts other campuses, or excuse me, other groups on our campus that are offering similar programming, and I'm going to try to partner with them in the future to kind of build a bigger audience. If you have any climate surveys on your campus that talk about financial concerns or things like that, that's how I got my data about our international students. They had kind of a climate survey about their concerns, and that's how I learned that that was a major concern for them, and was able to work with our International Student Support Services office to provide that programming. And building a partnership with them. So I didn't have to come up with that whole English conversation topic on my own. It was already an existing program that I was able to visit for a week and do my program. And for Financial Literacy 101 and 201, I was able to work with First National Bank to create that program, have Olivia come and deliver it. We included Penn State specific resources that are available to our students to help them with financial literacy, and that helped me save time and effort and get that program running off the ground without having to come up with something completely from scratch. So those are some things that I would say to keep in mind about building relationships with your stakeholders. So a few things that I want to just talk about in terms of working with partners before I turn that over to Olivia. So my relationship with Olivia started because my boss got an email from Olivia through First National Bank just trying to offer financial literacy services and programming that they could provide as part of Financial Literacy Month in April. And my boss, he sent me this email and said, I don't know about this. I don't want someone coming to our campus and selling. I don't think that would be a good idea, but maybe you can reach out to this person and you can talk to them and feel them out and see if this would be okay. Now, I saw that it came from First National Bank, and I knew as part of the PA Forward financial literacy team that First National Bank is one of our partners. So I was a little bit less skeptical right then than my boss was, because I have worked previously with Candy Abram from First National Bank, who has provided great financial literacy programming and also did so at the PALA annual conference this fall. I moderated a panel with her on financial literacy programming for the sandwich generation, that this was a really good organization to work with, and that they didn't sell during their sessions and were able to really work with us to kind of provide the content that we wanted to get to our constituents and do it in a way that's open and accessible. So a lot of banks, not just First National, do these types of services as part of their mission. They want to make a more financially literate consumer base. Obviously, they do want to work with them, but they're not necessarily going to come into your library and start selling. We also work with different agencies as part of PA Forward at the government level. We even work with Pennsylvania Cable Network, PCN, that does different programs and interviews with financial literacy that could be utilized. So if you ever have any questions about a specific organization that might reach out to you, you can reach out to us at PA Forward, and I can talk to Brandy Hunter Davenport, who is kind of our coordinator there, or I can look in my own resources and see if we've worked with that organization before. And I will provide you with Brandy's contact information at the end if you have any questions about PA Forward. But we do have really great vetted financial literacy partners through PA Forward. And so that's definitely a resource that you're welcome to take advantage of. You know, if you get kind of a solicitous email, I would ask a few questions and definitely make sure that whoever's coming into your library isn't selling, things like that. But I would say don't come into it with quite such a skeptical eye that, you know, if a bank is invited to your library, they're just going to sign everyone up for some type of savings account or a bank branded credit card and then leave. It really was valuable information that Olivia was able to provide. And she put a lot of things just in kind of a general context. So, you know, if you came into my bank with such and such a credit score, this is likely the type of interest rate that you might be getting. And she was able to answer the students' questions in a general way that provided them with a very valuable answer, but it wasn't something that was saying, well, you should only bank with First National or anything like that. And students really valued her feedback. So it was great to put that context of a financial expert, or a finance expert in our community. They didn't have to leave campus to go find a bank and try to talk to someone about these questions. We brought it to them, and I think that they really valued that. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Olivia to talk about what she does with First National to provide financial literacy programming.
All right, thank you, Emily. So just to touch on a few things that you had said, this is what I do for a living. As I sit here and I talk with people about their debt consolidation and find different creative answers to the problems that they have. So you had talked about, people with fraud and not knowing their retirement setup and things like that. And that is basically what I do on a daily basis with all of my personal customers. So being able to go out and do presentations, it helps when I have this personal experience here. So I can get these examples to go out when I talk with everyone's students and things like that. So some of the things that I am, catered to doing is just basically creating solutions for any type of problem you may have. If you are short money for a monthly basis, if you are trying to buy your house for the first time, if you don't know what budgeting is, if you can't balance your checkbook, things like that, customers come in and speak with me, and I find the best solution for them to go around. So Emily, if you don't mind switching to the next slide, what I can do is I help you teach the community. So with the personal experiences that I've had with all of my customers at my desk, but also I am a recent college graduate, and I have a lot of friends that are that 20 to 30 age range that know nothing about financial literacy, and they really want to learn more. So I love being able to go out and teach the community these things. Nothing is product driven. Not once when I was working with Emily did I mention any of the specific accounts that we would have to offer, but I do try to use my knowledge here at First National Bank. Since this is the only bank that I work for, I may have some answers that are more particular towards First National, but it's not anything of me saying this is First National. It's just those are the experiences that I have. And you had talked about the inflation of, the 1% to 2% inflation. What happens there? We have a lot of products in banks, like such as CDs or investment things that a lot of customers don't think about inflation, and they just think, oh, this is a great interest rate, and they want to continue on. So I love being able to express that to new budgeters, to new savers, to new bankers, and to help them learn that there are better things that they can do because of questions like that people may not understand between the interests. So what I offer is just different sessions. We have 6 of them. And I guess you can go to the next slide now. But we have 6 different sessions that I can cater, or I guess it's 5 that I can cater to anyone's needs. So what I did with Emily is we mashed a few of them together for the first half and mashed a few of them together for the second half. And basically, some we went more in depth for, like, I feel as though budgeting and credit are always very important things to do. So what I did was just kind of group those things together so that, I could focus more depending on if you were a first-year college freshman or if you were about to go out into the real world and do real world things. I know I had an experience where I graduated college, and within my first 5 years of college, I had moved to a state, moved back to a state, and started a job that was completely out of my degree. So I know that those are things that students could possibly relate to or be worrisome about. So I try to throw that information and my personal experiences into that. So along with these series of presentations, they can be as short as 20 minutes, as long as an hour, depending on what you personally would like to be covered and go over, what you want to go more in depth on. Like some people are very worried about fraud in this day and age. There are a lot of issues with debit card fraud and just stolen identities and things like that. And we have a lot of resources that we're able to share that we just have, hiding here, waiting for people to come ask about. So as frequently as I can share any type of information on things like that, I am always there. And that's about it when it comes to what we have to offer with these presentations. So Emily, you can go to the last slide. And this is just how to schedule a seminar with me. All you have to do is give me a call or send me an email and talk with me about what you might be looking for to do with your people, with your community, and see what people might be interested in doing. What do they want to learn? What do you want to help teach them? And I am there to help you do whatever it is that you want to do. But that is about it on my part, and I very much look forward to meeting with you guys.
Thanks, Olivia. So we're at the end of our content, so we just wanted to leave this open for questions. On this last slide, there is my contact information, there is Olivia's contact information, and then, as I mentioned, I'm the vice chair of the PA Forward Financial Literacy Committee. We are always looking for new members, new partner institutions, happy to answer any questions, and if you had any specific questions about PA Forward, that is the contact for Brandy Hunter Davenport, who works with the Pennsylvania Library Association to coordinate PA Forward. So I did want to provide her contact information for you as well. And as I mentioned, First National Bank is one of our partner institutions on the Financial Literacy Committee. So at this point, Olivia and I would be happy to take any questions that anyone has.
Is this the first? We don't have any questions.
You're welcome, Susan. But yeah, I would just reiterate that this was really well received by our student community. I was really impressed by the number of students that just came of their own volition. They didn't come for first year seminar credit. I was a little bit disappointed by that because I saw, the registration totals ahead of time and was really excited. I was like, oh, I'll at least have 9 people come to this one, and then none of those people came. But the students themselves across the board were really interested in the topic. They were not just there for the free cookies. They had definite concerns, and Olivia was really able to speak to them from an area of experience, both personal and professional. And we were also really easily able to incorporate really great modules that Penn State, and I mentioned Dodd-Risk at the beginning, has created to kind of self-educate about financial literacy, and those are at financialliteracy.psu.edu, that if you wanted to check those out. Those are really great modules that I think all of our students should take a look at, and we were able to incorporate those resources into the presentation.
We have a comment from Paula Holmes. She says, thank you. I think that some of this can be translated to board service, especially evaluating the range of discomfort questions.
Yep, and I made those surveys in Qualtrics, and you can, if you happen to have access to that software, it's great because you can just say like, oh, I want this question, and they're already kind of formulated by survey experts, so you can incorporate themselves. You can also customize them, but it was interesting and promising to see that in both sessions, people felt that they had made some progress in their level of comfort with talking about financial literacy over the course of just a 1-hour session. So even if they were still uncomfortable when they left, they were less uncomfortable than they were when they came in. And they knew now what resources were available to them through the campus to continue to improve if they wanted to further increase their financial literacy.
So this is Erin. I did have a question for the group, for those of us who haven't left the room yet. Has anybody run or tried to run a financial literacy program on their campus? Any of you feel inspired to do so now? Oh, thanks, Amy.
Just realized I sent that to you privately for some reason. This is Amy. We just, for the first time this year, we did Money Smart Week programming and used some different partners and organizations to come in and do some things for our students and for our staff and faculty. So I guess this leads into my question, and Emily, you kind of talked about this, but just to bring this home. So looking at the list of PA Forward partners, if we want to do something but aren't sure who would be the best person to contact from the list of partners, or how to go about approaching someone from there, do you have any advice for that?
Yeah, so if there's a partner that you'd like to work with, you're welcome to reach out to me or to reach out to Brandy, and we can help make that connection on your behalf. We do have experience working with the different partners. They come to our committee meetings, so especially Brandy knows a lot of them very, very well. And if you did need to kind of ask a question about who would be the best person to provide this type of programming, she also has that institutional knowledge of which partners have provided which programs to which organizations in the past. And so she could help you kind of target a specific organization that would be helpful to work with if that's the type of programming that you were looking to provide.
Okay, thank
and
you.
I would also super encourage, if you haven't looked at the RUSA Financial Literacy Handbook, it's really great, and it's amazing that it's free for anybody to access. There is so much information in there in how to structure different types of programs. You can just pull out the ones that are most important to your student context, and all of the outcomes and everything are already there for you. Yeah, Dot is really great. I was so happy to meet her the first time that I did, and she's doing really amazing work at University Park with students.
Has anyone else done any sort of financial literacy programming?
Well, this is Olivia again. My assistant manager has done a lot of financial literacies. Also, I believe with Penn State Harrisburg for all of their first generation college students. She has spoken to a lot of like first generation immigrants and talked with them, and I guess that she had a very positive response from that side, not just being a first year college student, but also being a first generation American and going to college and then also learning the finances behind it.
I think she worked with the Multicultural Excellence Program here, which is an evening program. They give them dinner. And I think for that session, in addition to dinner, they got a really nice pad folio to take with them to interviews from Penn State if they completed the session, if I recall correctly. So yeah, nice. Incentives are always great. And, you know, as libraries, we are talking more about how do we work with first generation students? How do we include international students? How do we include first generation American students in our programming, make them feel welcome in the library. I've also had a question before about like how do libraries even fit into this? But you know, as the Pennsylvania Library Association has identified, financial literacy is really key to kind of being a successful citizen. And so it's really important that we, as you know, a place where people come to learn and grow, that this is part of it. It's not just, you know, reading fiction. We also want to help people take control of their personal lives. And by doing financial literacy programming, we can do that. And I really would encourage, if you haven't done any type of financial literacy programming before, invite someone from a financial institution that does this type of programming to your campus to do something. Sorry, Olivia, it was really easy. You made my life so much easier.
I'm glad.
And we were able to customize it to what we wanted, and it took a lot of weight off of my back to get something done because the programming was already provided by somebody else. So it was definitely helpful. So we're really busy, and this is one way of doing something that's really beneficial without, let me see, Erin, I'll open it up. Does it have a piggy on the front? Yes, that's it. Yeah, so this is the financial literacy guidelines. Like I said, there are 6 overall themes that are here. And so they're broken down in the guidelines. They have the content areas, sample workshop topics, as we can see for this one. So getting your first job, understanding paycheck deductions, what if my paycheck isn't enough, and how does education affect income? And then here are some sample outcomes. Identify sources of personal income, understand the difference between a job and a career, understand factors such as careers, education, and skills that impact income. One of the statistics that I found in one of those the Financial Literacy Excellence Center reports is that though people who have a higher level of education are still susceptible to financial instability, they are much less likely to become financially unstable than someone who has not completed high school or has only completed high school. So having education gives you more opportunities to earn more money and become more financially, not responsible, but financially stable. Because people who make less money can still definitely be financially responsible and stable, but having that higher level of education correlates more positively with less financial instability. Identify reliable sources of financial information. That's what we do in all aspects at libraries, is help people find reliable sources, but be able to describe factors that affect take-home pay, understand how income affects lifestyle choices and spending decisions, understand government programs, deductions, and the relationship between taxes and income. And then there are more, so for each of these topics, there are a bunch of workshop topic ideas and the outcomes, and then as you go further into the document, there is an annotated resource list of free resources that you can use from your library. So these have already been vetted by librarians through ALA and our partners. And then the core competencies of financial literacy as identified by this group, glossary of terms, and some peer-to-peer mentoring. So this is actually Dodd's program, the Penn State Student Financial Education Center. This is at University Park, and students can work with another peer educator to improve their financial literacy.
That's great, thank you. At this point, if anyone else has questions, feel free to add them in. I'm gonna start wrapping up a little bit here. Erin, do you have a link to the survey that you can add in the chat box?
Oh, give me 1 second.
Okay, so Erin's going to put a link to the survey in the chat box. So we'd appreciate if you could fill that out and let us know your thoughts about the presentation today and about our programming in general. The link for the survey, yeah. And just as a reminder, we do keep track of attendees, so if you haven't already done so and there's more than one of you in the room, if you could add that to the chat box, that would be great. And also as a reminder, the recording of this presentation will be available to PALA members early next week through the PALA website. If you're not a member and you're interested in becoming one, I'm going to ask Erin to put her email address in the chat box to you that you can reach out to her. So if you're interested in becoming a member, feel free to reach out to Erin so she can get you in contact with the appropriate person. If you also have any suggestions for future discussions or presentations, also feel free to contact Erin and let her know that. We are always looking for great ideas. Not seeing any other questions coming through. I'd like to thank you all for coming and joining us today. I'd also like to thank Emily and Olivia for presenting with us. And at this point, again, feel free to fill out the survey, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and have a nice weekend.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye.